Good morning, all of you. Welcome back to the channel. So let's take up all the important topics for 10th of June 2023, and we're starting with the Hindu newspaper first. So talking about an important topic, which is talking about the Indian economy. So it is from GS3 economy. So economy on autopilot and it won't overheat for years. So this is basically telling that Indian economy is stronger, the momentum is going forward. It is like really nice, it is positive. We are having a positive outlook because every day we are talking something or the other about the Indian economy, its strength, its resilience. And then yesterday also we saw about the decision by the RBI's MPC to not change the repo rate and maintain the status quo because we are seeing that inflation is also moderating. So the chief economic advisor says that economy will grow steadily in the range of 6.5 to 7% till 2030, even without further reforms. So even if no major reforms are undertaken, despite that, we'll be recording growth within this range. So he suggests the 7.2% GDP growth estimate for the last fiscal, it could be an underestimate. And the way Indian economy has bounced back from the COVID-19 pandemic, even that is amazing. So India has bounced back from the pandemic blues, and we talk about GDP reforms of factor markets, skilling the ecosystem could spur growth to 7.5 or even 8%. So when we talk about structural reforms, they are going to play an important role as far as their linkage with the growth is concerned. And whatever unresolved problems we are having, which are the low-hanging fruits, if they are addressed first or on priority basis, so that will unlock more growth. And India can grow like China did between 1979 and 2008 from now on. So you need to know about the basic, growth story of China when like almost at the same time, even India undertook the structural reforms during 1991, and even during that particular time period, or we can say a decade before, China also undertook those structural reforms. But the way China has grown is different from India's growth trajectory. So you need to know a little bit about the way China has grown. So Tamil Nadu may go to court over Ravi holding back the bill. So basically, this is a dispute between the governor of the state and the chief minister. So this issue has been going on since very long. It's an important topic from GS to quality. So you need to know about all the basic and the important things regarding the governor of a state and the powers that a governor enjoys. So government will regulate artificial intelligence if it brings harm to the users, says Rajiv Chandrasekhar. So regulation of artificial intelligence is very important. Regulation and monitoring how things are changing and where basically it is being used. That is important because there are concerns related to artificial intelligence. You can even talk about the ethical concerns also. So this is an important topic from GS3 and GS4, ethics both. So Shannon project, it's a dispute between Punjab and Himachal Pradesh. So Himachal not to relent, the tussle with Punjab over the British era Shannon project is set to escalate. So the project, it is presently under the control of the Punjab government, and its lease, it will expire in March 2024. So that's why things are heating up over this issue. So Kaveri Authority, so when we talk about the interstate water disputes, how they are resolved, what is the process, what is the body that is being set up. So Kaveri Authority is going to meet on 16th of June and Meghdatu Dam may not be discussed. So you can find out about the location of this dam and then other interstate water disputes which are there. So the subject of the proposed Meghdatu Dam may not figure at the Kaveri Water Management Authority's meeting. And indicating this, an official of the Tamil Nadu government referred to the decision taken by the authority back in December to take a uniform stand for discussions on Meghdatu and any other project in the Kaveri basin. Till the Supreme Court gave its ruling on an application that has been filed by Tamil Nadu last year over this issue over this dam of Meghdatu. Coming to the editorial section. So necessity of electricity distribution companies. So the Electricity Act of 2003 provided the framework for the dismantling of the state electricity boards and the separation of every process of generation, separating it from transmission and then from distribution. So these become three different areas. So these needs to be handled by separate companies. So electricity generation was delicensed or delicensed, and while transmission and distribution, it remained licensed and regulated activities, promoting competition, protecting the consumer interest and the supply of electricity to all were the key objectives of this legislation. So under the new regime, competitive industry structure in generation that is evolved and the share of private investment in the creation of new generating capacity, even that has increased rapidly. Then competitive procurement through the long-term power purchase agreements that has also grown, and prices discovered through the marked turn out to be lower than anticipated under the earlier cost plus dispensation for determining the tariffs. So impressive growth in renewable power that is entirely the result of private investment. Then we have tariff-based bids for the supply of electricity to the distribution companies that has been the key to the extraordinary success of the national solar mission. And further, India now has one of the cheapest rates of solar power supply in the world. So here it is also talking about how is the UK model functioning. So when the counters of the new law, they were being discussed, the introduction of full deregulation and then competition, like it is there in the United Kingdom in the early 1990s, that was advocated by those who believe that we should adopt the latest reforms from the West. However, we can't, just completely copy them because we need to have a look and understand how the situation in India is different and then accordingly take the steps. So in UK, there is a mandatory power pool. It has been created where all generators, they have submitted the bids for the next day, indicating the quantity they could supply along with the price. And then these bids, they are stacked in ascending order. So price with the quantity at which the total demand indicated by the suppliers would be met became the pool price for electricity. So this basically, it is in a way they are using the forces of demand and supply to decide the market prices. So it is completely on the basis of the market competition that the electricity prices that is decided. So when we talk about this idea of dispensing with the discounts and letting the free market solve the problems of the power sector appears deceptively simple and attractive. So it seems very simple, but again, implementing it on the ground would be a challenging task. Then talking about open access and cross subsidy. So Electricity Act, it gives the consumers with a load of 1 megawatt and above the right to open access. So enabling them to buy electricity from whomever they choose to and pay the discom only for the use of their distribution network and a cross subsidy surcharge. So this cross subsidy surcharge, it became necessary as higher end industrial and commercial consumers, they pay more and cross subsidize the lower end households whose tariffs are less. But we see that the explicit mandate in Electricity Act to the state electricity regulatory commissions to progressively reduce the cross subsidies that remains unimplemented as of now. So this has resulted in cross subsidy surcharge continuing and acting as a barrier. And then we have another problem of discoms. They may have surpluses as well as shortages at different points of time. And these can be sold also. So power exchanges, they have come up to enable trading and optimal utilization of the total generating capacity in the country. So we are having the power exchange where you can online, you can trade in electricity. So that would be helping in optimal utilization of electricity and exchange prices. Definitely, they are volatile. Either they're a little above marginal cost when demand is modest and they're shooting up when the demand surges, necessitating the imposition of price caps. So this is not an unexpected phenomenon as demand for electricity that is inelastic. So when we say reforms, markets, competition, and consumer choice, so these, they denote positive connotations. So the problems with discoms, however, lie in the domain of political economy because there is then political interference, political parties, they obviously electricity, when we talk about free electricity or cheap electricity, so that is a part of their manifesto. So this thing basically leads to disruptions in the electricity sector. So foremost here is the inability of the regulators in the states to determine the cost to reflective tariffs. So state governments find it difficult to give timely subsidies as required by the law. And this underlying problem cannot be solved by implementing some imported reform ideas. So there is the political economy issue of misgovernance and rent seeking in some states. So these are the keywords where we see privatization, as in Delhi, may perhaps be the only solution. So because of political interference, we see the issue of misgovernance and rent seeking cropping up. Then talking about investment in generating capacity that has been taking place primarily on the strength of long-term PPAs with the discoms. So financing, equity as well as debt, they are de-risked by these PPAs, which have the implicit guarantee of the state. So the war in Ukraine, it has also led to ironical consequences emanating from a dogmatic faith in the deregulated market. So electricity prices went up many times due to the inelasticity of electricity demand. So government was compelled to give cash support for the lifeline consumption. Profits of the energy companies reached record highs and government had to impose taxes on their windfall profits. So in an earlier era, governments would have considered imposing the price controls also. So the consequence of implementing the reform idea of doing away with the centrality of the discom must be thought through, and lessons from the experience of the last year in UK should be analyzed, and there are no quick fix, easy solutions. We need to go with permanent solutions which are long lasting and they are sustainable. So again, talking about the MPC meeting and the decision, so price stability is a public good and it must remain a non-negotiable goal. You can't negotiate with price stability, with controlling, moderating down inflation. So keeping inflation at front. still continues, and RBI governor was unequivocal in asserting that the best contribution of monetary policy to economy's ability to realize its potential is by ensuring price stability. So CPI inflation target is at exact 4%, which is a goal that it has struggled to actualize right since January 2021. So here what is important is you need to know about the supply side reasons behind inflation, the demand side reasons behind the inflation, and then what are the measures which can help in bringing down the inflation. So yesterday also we talked about India-Nepal ties. We've been focusing upon trade and energy sector. So a pragmatic approach is required. So realistic handling, pragmatically handling of the irritants or the challenges between India-Nepal relations is the need. So Prachanda, he deserves credit for this. So he is in a weak position at home as leader of only the third largest party in parliament. And he's well behind KP Oli and Sheikh Bahadur Debua, who was waiting to take over from him in order to speak to the leaders from smaller parties. So we know about the political instability which is going on in Nepal. So the current Prime Minister of Nepal has shown political courage and probably shrewdly calculated the cost of paying heed to a spectrum of political noises, warning him not to be soft and to extract solutions to irritants such as the 1950 treaty, border differences, and India's reluctance to receive the report of the eminent persons group set up by the two governments. So a steady focus on development as demonstrated during the Pushpa Kamal Dayal Prachanda's visit that is going to boost our bilateral ties. Apart from that, towards economic integration is what we are aiming towards. So the visit, it has helped in underlining the real priority, which is the game changers, which can transform the economic landscape of the sub-region like hydropower projects to supply energy to India, then focusing upon infrastructure investments, access to Indian river transport, innovative tourism circuits, and better connectivity. So these are going to be the focus areas as far as India-Nepal relations is concerned. So when we talk about the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, we renewed the high-level commitment to bilateral cooperation on multiple fronts with improved deliveries was necessary. So there was unprecedented cross-party consensus when the Mahakali Treaty. So you need to find out about it, which is identifying the Pancheshwar multipurpose project with power stations of equal capacity on both the banks of the river was negotiated, signed, and received parliamentary ratification a few years ago. So there is a new dimension of cooperation in power sector with the transmission passage from Nepal to Bangladesh through India. So this is trilateral power transaction, that is transportation of electricity from Nepal to Bangladesh via India. So three countries are involved, so that's why trilateral. So with new power projects now under implementation or they are on the drawing board and the finalization of an agreement for the long-term power trade wherein it was agreed to strive to increase the quantum of export of power from Nepal to India to 10,000 megawatts within a time frame of next 10 years. So we are cooperating for payment and even in technology sector. So enhancing the digital financial connectivity is another crucial development. So even an MOU between the NPCI and the Nepal Clearing House for facilitating cross-border digital payments and the Indian offer to create a ground station and supply 300 user terminals to offer the services of the South Asia satellite to Nepal under grant assistance, they are important. And the real challenge for Nepal is to depoliticize cooperation with India, especially in water resources cooperation, improving the quality of democracy and governance at home, and check unbridled corruption, which is alarming even by South Asian standards. According to WHO, we see that piped potable water across India, it is going to avert around 4 lakh diarrhea deaths in India. So center says it will achieve 100% coverage under the Jal Jeevan mission by 2024. And so far, 5 states, which includes Gujarat, Telangana, Haryana, and Punjab, they have reported full coverage of piped potable water. So this is one step that is taken by government, Jal Jeevan mission. Apart from that, you can find out about some other related projects related to potable drinking water. So India, France, UAE, they hold exercise in Gulf of Oman. So navies of India, France, and UAE, they held the maiden trilateral maritime partnership exercise in the Gulf of Oman. And so that is there. And you can obviously, the mapping area becomes important over here. Coming to the world page. So location of Sudan, that is important because we have been knowing about the war that is going on in Sudan. So the warring parties, they agreed to 24 hours of ceasefire. So allies of Ukraine, they are going to legally fight Russia, and UN court gives the green light. So the International Court of Justice, it is UN's top court, and it gave green light to Ukraine's Western allies to support it in its legal fight against Russia. So Russia is going to deploy nuclear weapons in Belarus by July. So in this picture, you can see the Yars missile launcher of the Russian armed forces being driven in an undisclosed location in Russia. So this war is also taking this angle of nuclear war, nuclear weapons as well. So apart from that, location of Belarus, the bordering countries, that becomes important. So Russia will start deploying the tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus after the special storage facilities they are ready in July 7 or 8. And this will be Moscow's first movement of such bombs outside Russia since the fall of Soviet Union. So leading NATO countries say that they will support Ukraine and help it defend itself for as long as it takes from what Kyiv pass as an imperial-style land grab by Russia, which threatens the survival of Ukrainian state. So Russia-China ties offer global stability. So we have seen how the geopolitics, it has reshaped or it has reordered, got restructured because of the war in Ukraine. And one of them is definitely the growing closeness between Russia and China. So coordination of Russian and Chinese efforts on the international stage has a stabilizing effect on the global situation. That's what they believe. So Australia is seeking to stabilize and not normalize relations with China. So there's a difference between stabilization and normalization. So India-Australia ties, they run deep and is influenced by people-to-people links. So AUKUS, that is very important. Then definitely Quad also plays an important role where India and Australia both are engaged. So the outgoing Australian High Commissioner to India, he said that Australia is seeking to stabilize and not normalize relations with China. And this was no different from India's position towards China. Apart from that, so he was responding to a question on Australia joining the AUKUS and its intention to play a decisive role in Indo-Pacific region to counterbalance China. So he stressed that AUKUS is not an alliance, but it is a technology transfer agreement. So he said Australia supported the status quo in Taiwan. So the Indo-Pacific region, no doubt, it's very important from the perspective of what are the different bodies which have been formed, what is the nature of body. So you need to be like clear that AUKUS is not an alliance, it is a technology transfer agreement. Then you need to know about Quad also and other different bodies that have been formed where even USA is involved. Then Taiwan Strait, that becomes important. And even from the perspective of map work, this region is very important. So government is going to provide a clarification on TCS on the foreign spending. So the finance ministry, it seeks to resolve persistent doubts over applicability of the new 20% tax collected at source on the overseas expenditure. So ministry has issued detailed clarifications following the outcry from industry and taxpayers over this levy of TCS. So this is basically, we saw that the regulations and things have changed for the credit card and the debit card spending in foreign country and how the spending would be taxed, what is the limit. So finance ministry is going to issue fresh clarification to address the concerns. So union budget, it had raised TCS rate to 20% from earlier 5% on the overseas tour packages outflows under the liberalized remittances scheme. So apart from this, you can find out more about this scheme. And center included the overseas credit card spends in the LRS ambit, enabling 20% TCS on such transactions. So the limit is like yearly limit is you can spend $2.5 lakh abroad in 1 year, and this is the limit for one person. And this is there and this LRS scheme. So SBI economists say that domestic GDP growth is on firm footing. So RBI has been able to trim the excess labor demand without a contraction in employment. So country's largest commercial lender, SBI, said that domestic GDP growth is now on firm footing, with urban demand showing good traction while lagging rural demand is a cause for concern. So you need to know about these small things. Talking about the headline inflation. So the trajectory was likely to be shaped by food price dynamics. Definitely food prices, they play an important role when we are talking about headline inflation, because headline inflation takes into account the changes in the food and the fuel prices. Coming to the Indian Express newspaper now. So here, let's see what are the important non-repeated topics. So El Nino returns after 7 years. So June arrival is likely to impact the second half of the monsoon. So sudden gain in El Nino strength surpasses the expectations, and NOAA, it announces warming in the Pacific. So firstly, we need to know about what actually is El Nino, what are the conditions when we say that this is an indication towards formation of El Nino. So in India, it is known for suppressed rainfall during the monsoon. So the impact of El Nino on monsoon, then what is La Nina, and then important terms related to monsoon. That is a very, very important topic. So talking about the India's experience, so there has been 18 drought years over the last 100 years. Of these 13 years, they were associated with El Nino. So between 1900 and 1950, there were 7 El Nino years, but in 1951 to 2021, there were 15 El Nino years. So of these 9 summer monsoon seasons, they recorded deficient rain. So one thing is clear that it is not always true that whenever we have El Nino, so it is going to lead to a deficient rainfall. So as the monsoon hit the Kerala coast, the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration declared that the equatorial Pacific Ocean, it was firmly in El Nino phase. So over India, El Nino results in suppressed rainfall during the monsoon season. So it is not a good thing for India because we were having those expectations that if we have El Nino this year, so it might lead to further escalation of food inflation, further escalation of the food prices. And again, inflation can become a challenge for us to deal with because right now we are seeing that we are moving towards a moderate and a comfortable position as far as the inflation is concerned. So even for that purpose, RBI has said that we are maintaining the Arjuna's eye on how inflation dynamics are changing. Again, we are seeing new flare up in the state of Manipur. So the situation is basically, I can't say that it is coming under control or things are getting settled down because every then and now we are seeing this news of new flare ups, new incidences of violence in the state. So there is no need for the universal basic income and it brings perverse incentives. So what are the views of the chief economic advisor on universal basic income? That becomes important. So it definitely this it itself is an important topic. So it says that it is not necessary for India since the natural economic growth would take care of the country's many aspirations. And he also said that it may create ground for perverse incentives and dissuade people from seeking income generating opportunities. So for our country, when the natural economic growth, it should take care of many of the aspirations. So universal basic income may not be necessary. So we may be creating the ground for perverse incentives for the people to not make their own effort in seeking such opportunities. So therefore, universal social security for India is not something that should be on the agenda in the near term. So India has not reached that stage where it is moral or economic necessity to have the universal social security. So for a developed country which does not have income generating, okay, let's see, it has been continued further. So for a developed country which has not been generating income opportunities and employment generating opportunities, the state may have to step in and then provide the universal basic income kind of coverage. But right now is in the development stage and we don't have this kind of a problem as of now. Then you need to know about biochemical oxygen demand. So what does it actually signifies? This is an important concept. So Maharashtra is the state in India which receives highest FDI investments in India. So the entire world believes in Maharashtra and Maharashtra is number one in FDI in India. Then last year FDI rupees 1,18,422 crores was attracted in the state. And then you need to about in which all areas FDI was there was witnessed. So it leads in the top sectors of FDI, including services, IT, trading, telecom, and automobile industry. Then largest investment in financial sectors, financial services sector was also witnessed, and the appearance of new textile regulations. So yesterday also we talked about Chandrayaan-3 launching. Apart from that, so we talked about the scheme of Pradhan Mantri Sinchai Yojana and how basically we are seeing that things are going on in the state of Jharkhand. So investigation into the irrigation scheme, it reveals that there are gaps in the identification and targeting of the beneficiaries. So among the main objectives of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana is to increase efficiency of the water usage, facilitate the adoption of new water saving technologies, and expand the area under assured irrigation. So talking about artificial intelligence, whether it is good, bad, or ugly. So the uses and dangers of AI will seize the imagination of the policymakers, and they must also educate themselves regarding this technology. So being more aware about the nitty-gritties of this technology, definitely it has both positives and negatives. And then obviously there is the ethical angle towards the usage, or the we can say one of the concerns regarding the usage of AI. So what is AI in simple terms? So it is artificial intelligence is allowing a machine to behave in such a way that it would be called intelligent if a human being behaved in such a way. So that's very simple definition. So definitely it is much more, you can say, efficient and time-saving technology. But when we talk about the ethical concerns, in which areas would be used, whether it would be like taking over the jobs or not, that is one concern. Then it would be like challenging even the governance all over the world, because then as we talk about balancing between the benefits and the concerns related to AI, so that would be a challenge for the governance. So generative AI is the real danger since its content can be misleading. So fascinating Senate conversation 16th of May between the tech industry and senators that are educational, as one senator noted that what to define and how to define the technology is an important policy dilemma. Then regulations has implications for the constitutional rights like right to privacy, equality, liberty, and livelihood, and all of these are fundamental rights as well. So it leads to that very significant constitutional debate between the state intrusion and the privacy claims of the individual. So after all, AI is only possible because our data is being harvested. So in India, while the state has unilateral rights to collect and use our data, it has also given itself the ability to regulate the private entities. So private parties and individual citizens could use some protections and rights. So for now, the uses and dangers of AI will seize the imagination of policymakers, and accordingly, we'll be having new forms of policies, and to make thoughtful and constitutionally tenable regulations, they must educate themselves on this technology. So in first, for a former US President, Trump indicted in classified documents case, and he's expected to surrender before authorities next Tuesday. So that's there. So in this picture, you can see smoke rising from the Mayon volcano as seen from the Daraga Albay province in Philippines. So you just need to remember that Mayon volcano is located in Philippines. Coming to the explained page. So here we are having all the details about El Nino. So the phenomenon basically in Spanish, it means little boy. So it is a climate pattern that develops along the equatorial Pacific Ocean after intervals of few years ranging between 2 to 7 years. And the water on the surface of the ocean sees an unusual warming in a band straddling the equator in central and east central Pacific region. So the water gets heated up and broadly that is extending from the international dateline and 120-degree west longitude. So that is off the Pacific coast of South America or the west of Galapagos Islands. So in this region, the water gets heated up, and when the so-called El Nino Southern Oscillation ENSO, it is in its neutral phase, the trade winds they blow west along the equator and take the warm water from South America towards Asia. But this is the normal situation under normal conditions when there is no El Nino. But during an El Nino event, these trade winds they get weakened and they start blowing in a reverse manner, that is in the east direction. And instead of blowing from the east to the west, they could turn into westerlies. So they start blowing from west to east. So in this situation, as the winds they blow from west to east, they cause masses of warm water to move into the central and the eastern equatorial Pacific Ocean and reach the coast of Western America. So during such years, there prevails warmer than average sea surface temperatures along the equatorial Pacific Ocean. So impact is that it has been associated with severe heat waves, floods and droughts in the past as well. And in the Indian context, definitely it weakens the monsoon and it results into poor rainfall. So talking about the MSP hike and its impact. So support prices, they are important not just for India's farmers and the farm economy, but also for consumers and the prices they pay for the food. So even from the angle of politics also, this is an important area. So the center, it announced MSP for 17 crops in this year's Kharif season. So you can just go through this list of what are those 17 crops. So MSPs, they're important not just for India's farmers and the farm economy, but also for consumers, because then accordingly market prices are influenced by it. So what are MSPs? So these are support prices announced by central government. Sometimes even the state governments, they add a bonus amount as well. So intention is to provide a safety net for the farmers. So given the lack of warehousing and the cold storage facilities in India, farmers, they have limited bargaining power in the market. So if market prices, they are lower than the cost of the production, so farmer families, they can be ruined, because then obviously it turns into a loss. The market prices, agar cost of production se bhi kam hai, so it would ultimately be a loss situation for the farmers. So by announcing MSPs, government, it makes a promise that it will buy from the farmers at the announced MSP prices. So MSPs, they are calculated to cover the basic cost of cultivation, and the hope is that MSPs, they will save farmers from the losses. And another big purpose behind MSPs is to serve as a tool in the hands of policymakers to tweak the production pattern also. So The crops for which MSP is announced and for the which MSP has been increased, then obviously farmers they would prefer to cultivate that particular crop. So in this manner, the policymakers they are able to influence the production pattern as well. So the government wants to incentivize the production of like say pulses over the paddy. So it would be announcing a bigger increase in the MSP for pulses than for paddy. So that's how basically the decisions they are influenced. So does the government it actually buy all the crops at MSP? So that is obviously not true. The government it announces MSP for a whole host of crops, both in Rabi and winter seasons, and it procures only a few of those crops and from only few states. So it is not kind of a universal thing. So procurement is concentrated in only few states like Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, Chhattisgarh, and Telangana for paddy, and Telangana, Maharashtra for cotton, and Maharashtra and Karnataka for pulses. So talking about economic and political aspects of MSP. So here, economic aspect of MSP is not just limited to it is not just limited to farmers. So sharp rise in MSPs, it does elevate the farm distress, but it can also lead to a spike in the food inflation. So the trade-off between the interest of the farmers on the one hand and consumers on the other makes deciding MSPs a difficult thing because both they act in the opposite direction. So that is the economic dimension. And definitely politically, we understand how things are influenced by increasing the MSP. So how does the MSP hike? It compares with the rate of food inflation and the rise in the cost of production. So as we saw that prices of cereals went up by almost 14% in April this year, which means they were 14% more than what they were in April 2022. So from that perspective, MSP hike is modest. Then cost of cultivation, it went up by 6.8%. And from that perspective, also 7% hike in MSP is enough to ensure that the farm economy does not lose out to the non-farm economy. But it is like, it is merely enough, we can say, not that beneficial for the farmers, or it would not be a like helping too much to the farmers, but it would be just, helping them prevent the losses by selling directly in the markets. So talking about sexual intent in the POCSO Act, what is the definition of obscenity? And this is according to what the Kerala High Court has said. So Kerala High Court this week it quashed a case which was filed under the POSCO Act. So India's child protection law against a woman accused of subjecting her children to an obscene act. So this case was filed and it was ultimately quashed by the Kerala High Court. So the justice said the society's morality and some people's sentiments cannot be the reason for prosecuting a person. So what is considered as morally wrong is not necessarily legally wrong also. So talking about the POCSO case. So June in 2020, a women's rights activist posted a video on social media that showed her two children painting on her semi-nude torso with the hashtag body art and politics. So the woman, she was accused of subjecting her children to an obscene act and was charged with offenses under Section 10 of the POCSO Act of 2012. Then we have IT Act and the JJ Act. So the woman was also charged under these two acts as well. So Information Technology Act and the Juvenile Justice Act of 2015. So here basically it is showing that these three acts they were used. And what did the court say? So court said that although the video showed the woman's son painting her chest, the crucial question was whether there was any sexual intent on her part or not. So Section 9 and Section 10 of the POCSO Act, they are attracted when a child's relative commits sexual assault. So sexual assault under Section 7 of the Act requires sexual intent while touching the child's private parts or making the child touch one's own or another person's private parts. So the sexual intent behind the sexual assault is the important thing. So it also includes any other act with the sexual intent as well. So there is nothing wrong with the mother allowing her body to be used as a canvas by her child to paint, to sensitize them to the concept of viewing the nude bodies as normal. So this is what the court said. And the essential ingredient of the sexual intent in the POCSO offenses was missing in this case. So the thing or the element of sexual intent was missing. So that's why the court quashed this particular case. Talking about definition of obscenity, so this is like given a dictionary meaning also. So the court, it also referred to the bench ruling in the Ranjit Udeshi state of Maharashtra 1965 case, where the Supreme Court followed the Hicklin test that was laid down in 1868 Queen versus Hicklin ruling in UK. So test is whether the tendency of the matter charged as obscene must be to deprave or corrupt those whose minds are open to such immoral influences and into whose hands a publication of the sort may fall. Then in 2014 ruling, the top court, it applied the contemporary community standards test, which says obscenity should be gauged according to standards that reflect the sensibilities and the tolerance levels of an average reasonable person. So that's how you would be going ahead and deciding regarding the obscenity. And even in the case of films also, movies also, objectionable scenes, they must be considered in the context of the message that it was trying to send. So that is much more important thing. So RBI's surveys, it shows a rise in the confidence of consumers and easing inflation perception among consumers. So that is, yeah, basically in a comfortable situation as of now. So consumption of petrol and diesel hits new record in the month of May. Again, this is a positive factor. Equity mutual fund inflows in May half from the last month. So we're seeing less investments in terms of equity mutual funds. Lastly, taking up the Financial Express. So we've talked about the TCS and the Forex spending may soften further. So business travelers, they may get a relief. And there are some like confusions regarding what are the changes and how tax would be imposed on the foreign spending. So government would be further clarifying on this thing. So center proposes fewer GDP estimates to avoid the confusion. So 4 releases from next year likely instead of 6 right now. So this is basically to reduce confusion. So for better policy making, the move, it would help to reduce the time for finalizing its national income estimates to about 2 years from nearly 3 years. And proposed changes includes bringing forward the first annual advance estimate by a week to mid-January. Change will buy time for the Statistics Ministry to incorporate more data in the estimates, enabling better policy making. So GDP data has been at the center of debate since 2015 when the government reviewed the base year to reflect changes in the economy. So government is weighing a proposal to cut official annual gross GDP product. GDP estimates to 4 releases from the 6 to avoid multiple revisions that market watchers in the past have described as confusing, according to people familiar with the matter. So center to step in if the gaming firms, they delay the self-regulation body. So if any delay is being witnessed, then obviously then government would have to step in and take steps accordingly. So the self-regulatory organization is still a work in progress, and 3 month timeline has been provided. So industry has not come up with any concrete proposal even after 2 months. So 2 months have already passed. And upon application, the self-regulation organizations, they will have to declare it as a permissible online real money game for a period not exceeding 3 months. So these SRO, they can then carry further inquiry and take a decision. So we've already talked about all this, what the chief economic advisor has to say about the GDP growth and whether reforms are required or not. And even without reforms, what is going to be the GDP growth? So we have also taken up his views regarding the universal basic income. So India is going to open to FTAs with the African countries. India is like open to the free trade agreements with African countries. So India-Africa cooperation is an important topic these days. So there's a commitment towards making Africa a top priority and deepening India's engagement with the countries of the continent of Africa on a sustained and regular way. So African continent offers vast opportunities to Indian businesses with its rapidly growing population, emerging middle class, and abundant natural resources. So India to push green hydrogen and digital agenda at G20. So green hydrogen has been in news a lot. We need to know about all different types of hydrogen and different processes through which they can be produced. So NPPA, it is the National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority. It has fixed the prices under the Drugs Order 2013 based on decision of 113th Authority meeting. So this is the body which decides the prices of the drugs. So far they have in the latest meeting, they have decided the prices for 23 formulations. We've talked about what is El Nino, how does it occurs. Then we have also talked about today the power exchanges. And this is just talking about power exchanges, but we have talked about the entire electricity sector, what are the problems and what are the possible solutions. We have talked about even MSP today. So these are very important topics. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us in this video, and do subscribe to the channel and also hit the like button for this video.